Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Do you still have a thirst for self-realization? Do you still have a thirst for realizing who you are? When we first come to sadhana, or we first come to satsang, we have within us this desire, this thirst to understand something about the nature of reality. Who am I? Whether we ask this question or not, it is understanding who I am which has brought me here. And this rises as a thirst or a desire. And it's very similar to other desires you've had in your life at other times. Desire for partner, desire for place in the world, desire for creativity, desire for fame, for wealth. These desires that we take on as part of our maturing process and eventually come to realize are really unsatisfactory or not satisfying, even when we achieve them. And this is the beginning of this thirst, this quest to know who I am. There's an intuitive understanding that you have the solution to living this life as a happy, joyful, and loving being within yourself. And so the search begins to find this source of love, of connection, of happiness within yourself. And whether you realize it or not, and you use these words or not, this is the beginning of the inquiry. You are asking yourself, who am I really? Beyond gender and age and country and financial status and marital status or spousal status or whatever. You ask yourself, who am I? And then you learn to meditate in some way. You use some method. You take up the name. You learn to concentrate a little bit. And fairly rapidly, you break through into this experience, this direct perception that within you there is a sense of peacefulness, a sense of calm. There's a small glimmer of happiness within you. And so you let go of the thirst for worldly success, for other things outside of yourself in the world, for experiences and people. And you turn your focus inward. And you settle in as often as possible into this sense of peace and calm, which feels very natural to you. You come to satsangs because in the space, sitting with other people, or you go on retreat, sitting with other people, there is a return very quickly to this sense of being and consciousness as peace, as calm within yourself. But often something very interesting happens. Having come to this place, this experience, this perception of oneself containing this heart of being, this peacefulness, this calm within oneself, one simply starts to come to the cushion or come to the satsang or whatever, just to experience this sense of peace. And this is lovely. There's definitely an experience of freedom which is happening. And this draws us in, calls us back to the heart of being over and over. But once we get there, we stop. And we begin to use this sense of inner calm and inner peace to temporarily suspend or to temporarily strengthen our desires as we live in the world. If we suspend the desires to live in the world, we just simply sit quietly, and this is very lovely. But we lose interest in anything else. We think that we have achieved something in these moments of peace, and of course we have, in comparison to where we've come from. Or we use these few moments of silence, of peace, of calm, to rejuvenate the body and the mind, so that we can go back out into the world to begin the quest once again for satisfaction in people, in objects, in experiences in the world. So we turn back outward again. In both of these experiences, we've forgotten that what brought us here was the thirst for self-realization. And so we can go on for many, many years, going in to retreat, into satsang, into a life of silence, and then back out into the world. And we will call this a spiritual life. And we may take on the outward appearance of living in a spiritual way. But we've forgotten that we came to all of this not just to live a better life, which is a noble goal, but we came to all of this to know for sure, beyond any doubt, that we are free. So ask yourself, as you go through your day, you go through your sadhana, you experience yourself as being consciousness. From time to time, ask yourself, why did I come here? And see if you can touch this thirst, this desire that was so strong in you for liberation. And no matter what experiences you have in body, mind, and world, continue to ask yourself, am I aware? What is aware here? And even when the subtle experiences begin to come, and you find yourself in deep states of bliss and contemplation, ask yourself, who is it? that knows this. What is aware here? In this way, you keep yourself moving more and more and more deeply into the recognition that you are the self, that there is no experience in body, mind, or world which will ultimately satisfy this desire, this thirst to know who you are. So just remember to keep going. Whatever experience you're having in the body, in the mind, in satsang, in sadhana, from time to time, check in and ask, who is aware of this? Eventually, this also will fade away, and you'll find yourself, not yourself, of course, but you will find awareness as being consciousness, pure, unbroken, whole, complete, and eternal. You are that. Keep going. For some time, as we engage in our practice, sadhana, in this recognition that we are being consciousness, there can be a tendency that arises to use the momentum, the energy of turning toward the source, which does provide the body and the mind with energy, for projecting back out into the world. So we sit and in the peace and calm of our being, we start to plan. We start to use this energy to create something, to write a book, to create a program, to build a business. And all of this is fine, of course. Many of these endeavors will prove successful in the human sense, in the worldly sense. But I want to point you toward another possibility. And that is that you learn to sit, you learn to keep quiet. You learn to feel this energy. And rather than turning outward, back into the world, you use this energy, this peace, and this calm to look more deeply within. when you know who you are, all your doubt is destroyed. Then it becomes possible to be in the world in an entirely different way. To know and see the self within, and to know and see the self in every experience, in the body, mind, and world. And to know that those experiences are not separate from yourself. That which you have seen within the heart of being, and that which you are seeing with your own eyes is the same. This is the end of doubt, the end of fear, the end of a sense of separation. So just remind yourself from time to time that the energy, the love, the compassion, the joy that you feel during moments of sadhana, during moments of satsang, during moments of peace and calm, is also the vehicle for you to look more deeply into this question, who am I? And maybe be a little bit less quick to try to turn it outward and change something or someone in your world. But rather use it to establish yourself firmly in the recognition that which is aware is here now. And feel the full embrace of this knowing, of this peace, of this loving kindness toward yourself, toward all beings, toward every experience in body, mind, and world. This is the essence of who you are and your true nature. Know this beyond any doubt. All right. Questions? Comments? Namaskar.
I was just feeling this a few days ago. I had shared a few weeks ago here that I'm having thoughts about my old life, playing games and all the desires. And just a few days ago, I was thinking that what I want is to use the spirituality to be able to live my desires. So spirituality keeps me happy, and I can keep doing my desires.
Yes, yes. This is that outward thirst that I'm talking about, and how to, yeah, how not to reject the inward-looking path in favor of the outward-looking path, using spirituality or using sadhana. Yes.
So I thought maybe I should take the pursuit of the spirituality more seriously.
Ah, very good. I think one of the things I'd like to really point out to you, though, and really to have you emphasize, is that in order to take spirituality more seriously, which sounds like a big task, but is actually not so difficult when you realize that this same desire for the world that you experienced before and that comes up from time to time, and you want to use spirituality to, you know, experience and express your desires in some way. This is the thirst I'm talking about, which everyone experiences in life, right? And until we come to some spiritual understanding or spiritual opening, you can say, we don't realize that this thirst can be used in the same way that we used it before, right? To experience various desires in life. It can be used to open the possibility of spiritual life, the true possibility, which is to return to the source. So we're not rejecting something, we're not grabbing at something, we're recognizing that within us there is this naturally arising sense of desire, or what I'm calling thirst today. This is arising quite naturally. And now we make a choice with this energetic movement that instead of going out in the world to chase some imaginary life or some desire which we find rising in us. I know for you, we've talked about this, it's gaming and things like this. So rather than that desire, that thirst, being allowed to flow without any restriction into things which we would like to let go of, or we feel we have let go of, but they keep coming back to sort of say, please come back to me. But we take that same feeling of thirst or desire and we turn it toward the thirst for self-realization or recognition of the self. So now what we're doing is, rather than trying to deny ourselves something, we are taking that tendency and turning it toward the recognition of being, consciousness, and bliss. Now, understand that this is a halfway step, isn't it? Because we're in some way still encouraging, indulging the desire to get something, to achieve something, to become something. But in this case, now we are asking for awakening, enlightenment, self-realization, recognition of the self, however we term that. We are asking for God. But in this interim place, we can use this as the vehicle, right? To take us into a deeper recognition that we are moving toward the source. For a long time, in the beginning of sadhana, many people go through a long period of time of self-denial and self-rejection of who they were before. And they think there's a feeling that this is the way to achieve self-knowledge. But I've found over a long decades that to understand what is driving us in terms of thirst, in terms of desire, and so on, into the world, and then using that new understanding to refocus or point an arrow toward a new target, which is the recognition of being consciousness, to be much more effective than self-denial or self-negation. We naturally become more simple, more direct through using the tools which we have available to us than we do than if we simply deny or reject. It may be well true that the desires in the past have seemed to have gotten us in trouble. This may well be true. But this is the consequence of not knowing who we are. And if we take that same desire for self-fulfillment, for knowledge, for understanding, and we direct it towards self-knowledge, toward knowing the truth of our nature, then that same desire, you can say, which led us into a consequence we didn't want or anticipate, this same desire then becomes our ally to move us toward the recognition, I am that which is aware here, now. So, in the old days of my early days of Buddhist practice, there was this real strong emphasis that I seemed to keep seeing on destroy the samskaras, destroy the tendencies, destroy, destroy, destroy. And I found that not to be very practical over many years. I found that it was much more beneficial to know what the samskara was, to know what the tendency was, and then look at the underlying energy of the tendency and redirect it. So that's what I encourage you to do. And in this way, you also become more self-accepting, right? More loving toward the apparent personality that you have at this moment. Of course, you have no personality, but there appears to be a personality. Until the self is realized, there appears to be someone here who's engaging in sadhana, engaging in practice. So we make the journey a little bit easier for that apparent someone. And in doing so, we give a certain permission for that someone not to become stronger, but rather to dissolve in the recognition that there is no me, no mind, and ultimately there is no I. So we have compassion toward this apparent being, while at the same time realizing there is no one here. And that the belief that there is someone here, there is an apparent being, is just that, it's a belief. Structured over many, many years, decades, or lifetimes. But in the recognition of truth, we see that that someone never existed. And in this moment, all doubt is gone, and we know that we are free. That freedom is here as the natural state, not as something we achieved, but as something that we already were.
So I've just been listening what you've been saying, and what I'm hearing is that rather than focusing on the vasanas or the samskaras, which is directing your energy outwards, mainly focusing on the consciousness that you are, which is fully directing your focus to
the source.
To the source.
Mm-hmm. You don't have to hold it up in front of you. That's
Okay.
just a microphone. It will pick it up wherever you put it.
Good. From my point of work, as I work as a psychotherapist, I found vasanas or samskaras to be incredibly powerful within the energy that they hold.
Yes.
And when I hear you say, I like to look underneath what that energy is, where that energy is coming from. You need to have a lot of awareness to redirect it, because I found it to be quite powerful, that it has a stronghold on you and a grip, and directs you into the world of desire, of wanting, not wanting, fear of something,
conflict, something,
exactly.
Yes.
So I think my question is, because this has been my focus for many years, looking for the vasanas and transforming them. It's like what I said, like you need to be really conscious about the programming and have a certain detachment, I guess, to not allowing to identify with that vasana or that samskara.
I don't know that I necessarily agree that you have to have a lot of focus. I think that you need to be aware that there's another question that can be asked about the vasanas.
Who is?
Yes. And also, what is the nature of this energy that's present? Because the vasana can be present as a particular act, as a particular way of thinking, as a particular perception. But if you look deeply at the vasana, if you look directly at it, you can say, what you see is that there are really only 2 or 3 primary kinds of drivers behind the vasanas. Fear is one. There are others. But when we know what the primary driver of the vasana is, then that driver can be turned into the ally. And that's what I'm talking about. The energy of that is not to feel necessarily that we're not negating the vasana, we're not negating the perception. What we're doing is we're asking, what is the energy of this, and can it be used in order to understand or see something different about the nature of reality? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
You're coming from a different direction.
Yeah. And I always emphasize with everyone that it's what we're not doing is we're not trying to deny the existence of what is here, or the direct perception, or the experiential nature of what's rising. We're not saying, ultimately we are saying this doesn't exist, but in that moment we're not saying this doesn't exist. We're saying this is what is here now. And we're asking secondarily the question, so how can I use this in a way which opens me, opens the heart, opens the experience, opens the perception into something larger than what the limited vasana expresses. Yeah. And, in relation to what you're saying about being a psychotherapist and so on, part of the reason I can have this conversation here is because of the experience of everyone who's here. And I understand that. And so when you say, this takes quite a bit of focus. This takes quite a bit of awareness. I am absolutely agreeing with you. I am absolutely agreeing with you. And there are moments when trying to express this understanding or this knowing from my own experience is not suitable in another situation. Yes? Because of the maturity of the individuals that are present or the individual I'm speaking with. So as someone who is always interested in how you are feeling at this moment, I am always going to try to meet you where you are. And if there's an opportunity to speak about this deeper relationship that we can have with our experience, then we will. But we won't force anybody to go where they cannot go. You know, there's a reason there's only a handful of people really who come through these satsangs at any given time. And it really is because there are conversations which are held here, which not everyone is ready for or can use to their benefit. And it's also why satsang is not a workshop. A workshop is addressing something different. A different set of tools, a different set of circumstances, a different set of perceptions. Yeah. Yes. Mm. And I have a great trust and faith that the people who end up here by word of mouth and by the passing on of information from one person to another are those who have the maturity to be here. And so I can address these things in a way that is suitable for the people that are here.
I guess this is always what I found the danger of reading material, because you acquire the knowledge with your mind and you apply like this should be like this or this should be like that.
Yes.
And then addressing life from a mental frame and structure and
Yes.
experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a difficulty with any kind of teaching or any kind of reading or any kind of knowledge, isn't it? Mm-hmm. But the fact of the matter is that the way that we as humans learn is that we have a set of concepts which begin to fail in their application for us. We start to fail in the use of the way we believe things are. And then some new introduction comes, whether it's from a book or from a video or from from direct experience. Some new concept comes to us, and we first try to just express it as a mental, oh yes, I think I like this, I think I like it. But then when we try to live it, we find that we don't really understand how it works. We thought we understood it as a concept when we read it in the book or we heard it in the video. But when we tried to apply it, we realized we're just trying to put something which is not fully understood. We've tried to layer it over our experience and get our experience to fit into somebody's new concept. Mm-hmm. But eventually, through doing that, concept does become moments of experience or direct perception. And we begin to trust a little bit what we read a little bit more. We begin to trust it because it's now becoming our living experience, that it's possible to look at our experience, our thoughts, our experience in the world, our emotions, our sensations in the body. It's possible to look at those things not in the way that we looked at them before, but in the way that this new concept has come to us. And we are testing, is that true? Is that true? Is that true? And as it becomes more and more true, we open more and more to it. Yes, this seems to be true. So now I begin to live a little bit more, not out of the conceptual framework that was in the book, but out of my direct experience. And as the heart opens, we begin to see, yes, this is now true. I see this is true. that the perception I had before, the concept I held before was mistaken. And in light of this new information, I see that it's possible to live in a different way, to understand in a different way. And slowly, failure introduces new concepts, introduces new ways of understanding, new ways of being, new ways of experiencing, direct perception of who I am now, or of what is understood now as the new truth. And then I start to live out of that. And then this, of course, starts the cycle all over again, so that we deepen even below that. We don't just stop right there. We have a new perception now. We are living out of it. We say, oh yes, now I understand. Now I see something has changed. But this change, once we've become comfortable with this process of change, of acquisition of new understanding, of new concepts, of new perception, and we become comfortable with that, and we open the heart, we lose our fear. We don't need to stay the same in order to protect ourselves anymore. Then the whole process just begins a continuous expansion that goes on throughout all being consciousness. And so then awakening, enlightenment, the self, whatever you want to call that experience or that perception, is not just an event. It can be an event and is for many people. It's not just an event, however. It's actually an ever-expanding universe, you can say. So awakening is not a static moment. There are static moments in which we say, oh, at that moment, everything changed. But if the experience is true, that moment of change begins to open and expand and go on continuously. Mm. Yes. Mm. I met someone a few years ago here in Tiruvannamalai. And it was really interesting to know her because she is a psychotherapist. And she was coming here to Tiru because of the experiences that she was having in her own life and in her own recognition. And then she asked the question, would it be possible to bring some of my clients, the small selected group that she felt were ready to open themselves conceptually to another way of perceiving their experience beyond the traditional psychotherapeutic model. And she decided, yes, she would do that. And so she started initially, I think she brought 2 people or 3 people. She brought them here, introduced them to Bhagavan's teaching in some way from her own experience, using a combination of the experience that those people had had with her as a psychotherapist and her experience with inquiry. And it was very, very successful. And over about the 4 or 5 years that she was coming here, the group got a little bigger and a little bigger and a little bigger. And then COVID hit and the whole thing stopped. But at that time, she was bringing 10 or 15 people every year. And these were people that she was hand selecting out of her clientele. And as far as I know, she's still doing a similar kind of thing in her private practice, but in some ways doing both, having to ask herself, what does this being need at this moment? And then having the tools to
Share that.
to share and apply at the moment, meeting the person where they are. Yeah, it's very beautiful.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And I was blessed to be a part of that because she asked me to come in during the period she would bring people for 8 or 10 days, I would come in for 1 hour every day or 2 hours every other day. And we would go more deeply into the non-duality nature of mind and consciousness and open and broaden their perceptions of who they were as people. And it was a beautiful, lovely experience.
I believe that,
Yeah. And perhaps one day she'll come back. We'll see. What I've hoped to do and tried to do throughout my work with people is to find ways to enable people to accept both where they are and what the possibilities are if they open their heart and open their mind beyond what their conceptual knowledge is. So that's what we are attempting to do here.
I think you're doing a great job.
I don't know.
Yeah, but it is.
We are seeing some results. So,
Yeah. Meeting where they are and also showing them the difficulty and what the next step is. I think that's very valuable.
Yeah. Nice to have you back home again.
I'm going through something controversial and challenging. I have repeated experiences, like very deep insights of heart opening. Like yesterday I was walking in the ashram around Samadhi and felt so much unity with everything around, like the heart expanding, like not this body, just everything around I see is all like one heart, and everything is part of it, like inside this divine heart. And this is so beautiful and so energy is like, so blissful. And in this state, you don't need anything, you don't want anything to get, like it's all there.
Yes, the desires fall away.
Yes.
You're just happy in your own momentary happiness. Yes. It's very immediate and direct, isn't it?
Yes. But then I return to my normal life, where there are people with whom I had also amazing experiences, like souls which are very dear and close, and also have some blissful moments. And then there is desire for these moments again and again. And people, they have a tendency to leave, to go away. So, and yesterday it was like strong bounce back, like falling from the sky.
Yeah.
Because
some come around again, yes. Some go permanently.
Some very dear people left, and some expectations didn't come true. So, how to...
So what you're expressing is actually a very clear description of the reality of both the ultimate, which is this sense of unity, of wholeness, of oneness, of beingness, which is complete and needs nothing, and the relative experience, which has its foundation in the impermanent and unsatisfactory nature of all experience.
So this separation is, I understand, like this separation from certain souls is illusory, like they cannot be separate, but still there is this attachment on the body mind.
Well, yes, but this is the exact moment for the inquiry. Who is it that experiences, expresses, thinks she sees some form of separation? In order for there to be a sense of separation, there has to be a very strong sense in that moment that there is a me and there is a you. Well, if you understand this through the experience of oneness, the ultimate experience that you have walking around the heart of being in the samadhi, then you can see that only one of those two things can be true. Either there is one, or there is the appearance of separation. So the appearance of separation is coming from this strong connection or identity in the personal. I am separated from you. What sadhana does, what the inquiry does, is it chops very directly at that root, at that belief that there is separation, that there is an I, that there is a you, that there is a they. So the only thing that can be recommended is that when you feel those kinds of feelings coming up, when your mind, not you, when the mind is expressing that separation is here, understand that what the mind is saying is there is an I and there is a he, or there is an I and there is a she, and challenge it at that moment. Who is this I? I am perceiving myself to be separate. Who is this I that perceives this? And this doesn't mean that when someone who is near and dear steps away from your life and doesn't appear to come back for a long period of time or ever because they pass away or whatever, that you won't feel some pain or some sense of loss, right? But again, who is this I that experiences this loss, this sense of separation? This is not to make you feel better or make you feel like it's okay that they went away. It's not about that relationship anymore. It's about this interior experience that there is a me which is separate from other beings. That either I can go away or they can go away. In the ultimate understanding, there is only one. There was ever only one. So what you perceived to be another was simply yourself. Yes, in another apparent form, but simply yourself. And there are aspects of yourself which you let go of on a daily basis. So let go of the other as well. But you don't want to. Yeah, I see it in your face.
Because you want to let go of unwanted things and you want to.
Okay, so maybe rather than saying let go, I should say, can you hold on
No,
to another? Is it possible?
no,
So what choice do you have?
no choice.
So if you recognize that you cannot hold on to another, that they can only come back to you if they're meant to, right? Then what will be the result of trying to hold on to someone whose destiny is taking them away? What will be the result? Will they suffer? Will you suffer? Yes. Yes. So now you see this becomes entirely not about the natural flow of energy in the universe. That something is coming, something is rising, staying for a period of time and going. Someone is coming, staying for a period of time and going. The natural flow of life and energy. Now this becomes very clearly about What is there that I want? What is there that I am choosing? Do I choose the natural flow of being, consciousness, and bliss? Or am I invested in suffering in order to maintain some story of me? If you're not invested in suffering to maintain some story of me, then you will still feel pain, but in the natural order of things, it will subside. Don't agree to suffer. Be free. Liberate yourself. Liberate all others, apparent others. This is your task. This is what you have come here for. So when you find some area in which you feel yourself clinging or holding on, rejoice. This difficulty is here in order to help you see more clearly. It may be difficult, but the reward, you can say, or the goal is freedom. And by liberating the other, the apparent other, over time we also liberate ourselves. We understand that in this life, having taken a body, living in this apparent world, things are rising, staying for a period of time, and falling. But that rising, staying for a period of time, and falling is not who you are. Who are you? Be kind. Be kind to yourself. Know when the suffering Buddha is here. And don't pile on her. Remain quiet. This too shall pass. Okay, I wish you all well. You have a beautiful and wonderful day. That you come to liberation quickly in this moment, in every moment. That you travel well and come back soon. That you are welcomed back. That you all find within yourself being, consciousness, and bliss. This is your nature. Hari Om Tat Sat.